Understanding the Cestequi Vie Act of 1666. Back in London, 1666, during the Black Plague and Great Fires of London, Parliament enacted an act behind closed doors called the Cestequi Vie Act 1666. The act being debated was to subrogate the rights of men and women, meaning all men and women were declared dead or lost beyond the sea. Back then, operating in Admiralty law, the law of the sea, so lost at sea. The Cestequi Vie Act deals with existence of life. A Cestequi Vie trust, also known later as a fidecommissary trust, and later again as a foreign situs trust, and also known as a form of secret trust, is a fictional concept, being a temporary testament trust, first created during the reign of Henry VIII of England through the Cestequi Vie Act of 1540, and updated by Charles II through the Cestequi Vie Act of 1666, wherein any estate can be effected for the benefit of one or more persons presumed lost or abandoned at sea, and therefore assumed or presumed dead after 7 years. Additional presumptions by which such a trust might be formed were added in later statutes to include bankrupts, minors, incompetents, mortgages, and private companies. The original purpose and function of a Cestequi Vie trust was to form a temporary estate for the benefit of another because of some event or state of affairs or condition prevented them from claiming their status as a living competent, and therefore become present before a competent authority. A Cestequi Vie trust may only exist for 70 years, being the traditional accepted life expectancy of the estate. As all Cestequi Vie trusts are created on one or more presumptions based on its original purpose and function, such a trust cannot be created if none of these presumptions can be proven to exist. The most obvious and primary example of this would be to demonstrate that you're alive. In 1534, prior to the first Cestequi Vie Act, 1540, Henry VIII declared the first Cestequi Vie type estate with the Act of Supremacy, which created the Crown Estate. In 1604, 70 years later, James I of England modified the estate as the Crown Union, or Union of Crowns. The state, London, took custody of everybody and their property into a trust. The state became the trustee or husband, holding all titles to the people and property. The state takes control until a living man or woman comes back and claims their titles by proving they are alive, and claims for damages can be made. In practical terms, this is hardly ever going to occur because nobody actually realises that these Cestequi Vie trusts exist in the first place, so no one's coming back to claim them and saying, "Look, I'm alive, can I have my trust please?" This is why you always need representation when involved in legal matters, because technically you're dead. The legal fiction is a construct on paper, an estate in trust. When you get a bill or a summons from court, it is always in capital letters, similar to tombstones in graveyards. Capital letters signify death. They are writing to the dead legal fiction. A legal fiction was created when someone informed the government that there was a new vessel in town based upon your birth. Since 1933, when a child is born in a state or estate under inferior Roman law, 3 Cestequi Vie trusts are created upon certain presumptions, specifically designed to deny the child forever any rights of real property, any rights as a free person, and any rights to be known as a man and woman rather than a creature or animal by claiming and possessing their soul or spirit. Since 1933, when a child is born, the executors or administrators of the higher estate knowingly and willingly claim the baby as chattel to the estate. The slave baby contract is then created by honouring the ancient tradition of either having the ink impression of the feet of the baby onto the live birth record, or a drop of its blood, as well as tricking the parents to signing the baby away through the deceitful legal meanings on the live birth record. This live birth record, as a promissory note, is converted into a slave bond, sold to the private reserve bank of the estate, and then conveyed into a second and separate Cestequi Vie trust per child owned by the bank. Upon the promissory note reaching maturity and the bank being unable to seize the slave child, a maritime lien is lawfully issued to salvage the lost property and itself monetized as currency issued in series against the Cestequi Vie Trust. Since 1931, the Roman cult, also known as the Vatican, created the Bank for International Settlements for the control of claimed property of associated private central banks around the world. Upon the deliberate bankruptcy of most countries, private central banks were installed as administrators, and the global Cestequi Vie Foreign Situs Trust System was implemented from 1933 onwards. This means that the Vatican has control of your Cestequi Vie Trust. Birth certificates are issued to us by the dock, just as ships are given birth certificates at the dock. It's about commerce. We come from our mother's waters. Your mother has a birth canal, just like a ship, and the ship moves by the sea current, just as we are able to move by the currency. Learning about your legal fiction helps you unlock yourself. Otherwise, you are just an empty vessel floating on the sea of commerce. Parents are tricked into registering the birth of their babies. In about 1837, the Births, Deaths and Marriages Act was formed in the UK, and the post of Registrar General was established. His job was to collect all the data from the churches which held the records of birth. Registrar is formed by the word regis, which is from the Queen or Crown. All people are seen to be in custody of the Crown. This allows people to function in commerce and to accept the benefits provided by state. We have to understand who we are as men and women and how we can relate to the system. The City of London is a centre for the markets, where merchants work. Then there is mercantile law. It comes from Admiralty law. So where you have commerce and money, you also have justice and injury. You need to understand the bankruptcy before you can understand the judiciary. We have accepted the claim to accept the summons, yet only the dead can be summoned. Once we have agreed to be summoned, there is an obligation to accept any liability which has been created. Entering a not guilty plea, or any plea, admits jurisdiction. The straw man, otherwise known as the legal fiction, is always guilty. These are the legal entity or fiction created and owned by the government. By accepting jurisdiction, you are obliged to accept a claim and settle or discharge it. Then you add conditions, i.e., I accept on proof of claim and proof of loss. This gives the liability back to them. The legal fiction is always guilty. Only in the High Court can the real man or woman appear. Games are played on courts. Hence the name court. It is a game with actors acting on acts. It has to be treated as a game and just business. Your straw man is like owning a share in the stock market. You may own a share, but it is still a share of the stock. Legally, we are considered to be a fiction, a concept or idea expressed as a name or a symbol. That legal person has no consciousness. It is a juristic person, an ons legis, a name or a word written on a piece of paper. This traces back to 1666, where London is an independent city-state, just like the Vatican is an independent city-state, and just like Washington, D.C. is an independent city-state. The Crown is an unincorporated association. Why unincorporated? It's private. The Temple Bar is in London. Every lawyer called to the bar swears allegiance to the Temple Bar. You can't get called without swearing this allegiance. Now let's think about that for a minute, because when you think about it, every other service to this country swears allegiance to the Crown. But the lawyers swear allegiance to Temple Bar. By the 18th century, the Crown was viewed as a company. However, by the start of the 19th century, around 1814 onwards, upon a bankruptcy of the company, 1814 to 15, it became the full private Crown corporation controlled by European private banker families. Our only way out is to reclaim your dead entity, or straw man, that the Crown created. In order to do this, you need to reclaim your Cestequi Vie trust and then collapse it and forgive yourself of your debts, and then remove yourself from the Admiralty law which holds you in custody. We will look at how you do this in our next video in the series. If you have enjoyed the content of this video, you may wish to consider subscribing to the channel. You can do this free of charge by clicking on subscribe, click the bell for notifications for when further videos are uploaded, and then click on the thumbs up to show you liked it. And most importantly, consider sharing it with some of your crazy friends. Thank you so much for watching.